Good evening, Wareham, and thank you for joining us tonight for this Candidates 2023. We are being shown live on WCTV and Zoom. If you have any questions, you can go to the question and answer on Zoom and send them in, and there'll be people here to monitor them. Please remember, general topics, nothing personal. Thank you. The crowd, the people sitting behind me, same thing. If you have questions you'd like asked, please write them down and bring them up to Kristen, who's sitting up here in front of the computer, and he will get them to us. Tonight it's going to go, this was a personal request on my part. We have the Director for the Council on Aging that will be joining us, the Assessor Commission, Priscilla Porter, the two Sewer Commission, Bernie Pigeon and Bob Scanlon, and the Select Board, Judy Whiteside, Trish Wirtz, and Jim Muniz. And most importantly, remember, election is May 2nd. Please get out and vote. The school committee candidates will not be joining us tonight due to some other commitments. So, having said that, I'm going to turn this over to Wes, and he can make a few comments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Wes Cipolla, and I'm the editor of Wareham Week newspaper, and it is an honor to be here and help moderate Candidates Night tonight. We here at Candidates Night are aware that many people in the audience, not only here in person but watching at home, would like to attend the vigil for Toby Alford that will be held tonight at 8:00 p.m. in the high school softball field, which is just down the road. And for that reason, we have made some changes to our formatting in order to ensure that the evening will conclude so that everyone has time to attend the vigil.
Thank you. So, first person we're going to talk to is Sharon Rice, the Director of the Council on Aging. Sharon is pretty new to the town of Wareham. And having said that, Sharon, would you please give us a background on your little history, where you came from, some of your experiences?
Well, thank you for having me. So I am new to Wareham. I've been director now for 6 months and starting to know my way around, so that's a good thing. I spent most of my professional career in the book publishing industry, specifically marketing, but I did some editorial work too, and just started to burn out. It doesn't sound like it's a really hectic career, but it is. So I just happened upon a job that was it was a temporary job for the Mansfield Housing Authority. And it was my first introduction. I've been a lifelong volunteer, but it was my first time working in the public sector, and I just loved it. It was great working with seniors. It was great helping people, and it kind of started me off on a new career path. So from there, I went to the town of Norton where I live and became the Parks and Rec director, and did that for a few years, and then saw the opportunity to once again go back and work with seniors at the Attleboro Council on Aging. So I was there until I saw this amazing position here in Wareham, and just kind of did a little weavy route, and here I am. So.
Very good. I know I've heard from a lot of people. We're very glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here.
Just a little on the Council on Aging. What do you have for staff in the Council on Aging? I think a lot of people don't realize in Wareham how this program runs.
Okay, so right now you're looking at the staff. I have an amazing board, which is volunteer run, obviously, and they are my rock. I could not do anything without them. They're awesome. We are in the process of hiring we received some earmark funds from Senators Gifford and Pacheco, and so we have a community outreach person who will be starting on June 5th, 30 hours a week. And starting July 1, we will have a full-time outreach worker, which I'm really excited about, an outreach coordinator. So right now it is just me and some really great volunteers, and then we'll be enhancing with some paid staff. So.
Could you explain a little bit, what does a community outreach person do and a outreach coordinator?
Well, they sound similar, but they're actually very different. So the community outreach is, the focus is external. It's looking outside at the community, finding the need, more on an agency level. So, for example, one of the first places we'll reach out to is the Housing Authority, where there's a lot of seniors there. We'll be going to the mobile home parks around that have lots of seniors, doing presentations and educating people about what our services are, how we can help them, when to reach out to us, how to reach out to us. It might not help them now, but maybe a year down the road or 6 months, or maybe it's their neighbors. People don't know what we do here. So that person is going to help us focus on relationships to build within the Wareham community. The outreach coordinator is more internally focused. So if you're a senior or you have a parent or a neighbor who needs some services, you can come to our outreach coordinator for things like fuel assistance, or if you need to apply for SNAP or EBT benefits, which are like food stamps. If you need help with, you're a senior either temporarily or permanently, you need some help in your home in order to stay in your home, we will connect you. We're an information and referral organization. So we don't actually provide the services, but we connect you to the agencies that do. So we're kind of the liaison between, because it's a really tough thing to navigate when you need the services. So that's what we do.
There are a lot of seniors in Wareham. Do you have any idea about what the percentage of seniors are? I know it's up in the 30s somewhere.
Yeah, so I've heard different figures. Most communities, it's 25%. In Wareham, I've heard anywhere from 33 to 38%. So it is much higher here than in other places. Just today, I delivered 3,000 newsletters to the post office. So every registered voter in Wareham, age 60 and up, will be receiving a newsletter thanks to a grant that we received from MCOA. And it's our way of introducing seniors to what we do here. So it's a one-time deal. If people are interested, they can call us up and we'll stay on our mailing list. But right now, this was a way to introduce us. So I called the list and got it down to 5,450 households with a senior in it. So it's a lot. It's a lot of seniors.
Yeah, when you consider something like 8,800 households in the town.
Yeah.
Single-family homes. So that's
A lot.
a significant number.
Yes.
Very good. I mean, I didn't realize you were doing the mailing to all the seniors. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, well, we were fortunate enough to get the grant to cover the postage and the printing, so, and my volunteers have been busy putting stickers and keep them busy, out of trouble.
So what are some of the programs you have now, and what are some of the programs you think you'd like to add in the future?
Well, my board, as I said, has been terrific. So when I started, they already had a really great core program in place. So I've worked to kind of enhance what they've offered, but we have a wide variety of exercise programs. One of the things people don't realize about senior, when you say the word senior, it means 60 and up, and that is a very, very wide range. If you look at the word student, generally you mean ages 4 to 5 all the way through college. Well, the senior range is far greater. It's a much bigger span, and it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. So you wouldn't treat a preschooler like you would treat a college student, and you can't treat a senior at one ability the same as you would treat at another. So we try to offer programs that are meet the needs of all different abilities. So we have exercise programs that are pretty strenuous, and we have others that are chair-based, so that we can, and everything in between, so that there's something for everyone. We have a lot of fun things. We have cards, we have mahjong, we just did our first trip yesterday. They went off to Foxwoods. Next week they're going on a riverboat cruise down the Charles River, and we've already sold out for Encore in June. So people are really happy about trips. So I'm open to pretty much anything. We'll try it. If people like it, we'll do it. And this is for the seniors, so you try to give them what they're looking for.
Yeah. One of the programs most city and towns offer is a senior tax relief program.
Oh, yes.
I know Wareham does offer that. I don't know if you have enough applicants to fill all the positions, but could you speak on that a little bit? I know there's a means test to it and things like that.
Right. So there is a means test. So right now, the town allows, and this is through the select board office, there is if you meet the criteria financially, you can earn up to $1,200 off your property tax bill. And we do have some folks that, they come in and they do various kinds of jobs, and it's equivalent of $15 an hour. And so most of them are working in the COA, helping with the mailings like we did today. We do have some folks in the harbor master office, and they just track their hours. They apply, and if they qualify, you have to obviously be a homeowner here in town. It has to be in your name. There's certain criteria that you have to meet, but it's a great program. We do have, I'd say, double the number of people that we've had in the past, but there's still a lot of room for more applicants if people are interested. The program runs, I want to say the select board approved this in February sometime, and it ends at the end of October because the assessor needs to be able to process all these credits in time for the tax bills. So it's a finite window, but lots of time left.
They would apply through the select board office?
No, they actually apply through the COA. So the COA runs the program, but it's set under the rules come down from the select board. Yeah.
Since you've been this short time in Wareham, what have you found to be your biggest challenges to running the COA?
Well, I have to say, honestly, it's the roads, because there's stop signs and there's not stop signs. So I drive very slowly wherever I'm going, because I don't know what's around the corner and whether I'm supposed to stop. It's a big area. It's geographically trying to find my way around, just even knowing what the organizations are in the community. I've had, the Showcase Wareham was an awesome opportunity for me to get to meet some of the different people running programs in town, and I just have a lot to learn, and every town is different.
I know the council offers Meals on Wheels, and I know I asked you this before. I'm bringing this up again because I didn't know what the answer was. Is there a cost to Meals on Wheels?
So Meals on Wheels is offered through an agency, an awesome agency called Old Colony Elder Services, and we work with them, but it's not actually part of the COA. So they are out of Brockton, and they are, the Wareham site for Meals on Wheels is on the lower level of Town Hall. So the short answer to your question is there is a suggested donation of $2.50 per meal, but it is not required. And Old Colony does all the screening. It's a great program, especially, during COVID, they saw their numbers like double. And it's been a great way to keep people fed with nutritious meals. They're diet specific, so you can have, if you don't have any dietary restrictions, you can have a regular meal. If you are a diabetic, you get a different dessert. If you need a renal meal, they customize it for most conditions, not all, but most. And they provide, if there's like a holiday coming up, they'll provide it frozen so that you're covered. They also provide shelf-stable meals in case there's inclement weather. So they really thought this through. They're also doing a pilot program for the Haitian community where they're doing different kinds of meals that have different flavor profiles. So it's an amazing organization, and the Meals on Wheels is just one great service they provide. The other thing available to Wareham residents is a box lunch program that they offer. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, you can call Meals on Wheels office here in Wareham, and they get you on the list. And from 9 to 9:30, you just drive up to the back of Town Hall and say your name. They check you off on the list, and they hand you a box lunch. So it's a sandwich, it's juice, it's usually a bag of chips, a fruit cup, maybe a cookie, could have some pasta salad or potato salad. It's a really nice meal that you can get 3 days a week here. So.
And they would sign up for that through the Council on Aging?
You can call the Council on Aging, but it's the Meals on Wheels office. So you can call the main town hall number, and it's extension 6514. Cheryl Johansson is the site coordinator for that. She also is in charge of the distribution for Meals on Wheels, too. So she's a busy lady, but great services right here. in town.
I just learned a lot about that.
Ah.
Is there any transportation offered for our seniors? To maybe get to the Council on Aging, doctor's appointments, things like that?
So, yeah, so GATRA runs the transportation, the public transportation here in Wareham. For those who are income qualified, we do have a program that is through the Community Development Block Grant, and we do offer dial-a-ride passes, which is door-to-door service, and passes, like 31-day passes to take public transportation, and it will get you anywhere within the Wareham boundaries. We do offer a program which right now we're finalizing a new contract, but if you again are income qualified, we can provide medical transportation if you have no other way to get there. If it's not covered through your health insurance, we can get you out of town for medical transport. So, but we don't have, like, you can't go to, you can't go to Shaw's through a COA bus or anything like that. Someday, but not yet.
Something in the future, hopefully.
Yes, we have to get a big grant for that, but,
So I know there's lots of programs, and you're always looking, you need volunteers for Meals on Wheels and things like that.
always.
Could you give the number if people watching and listening would like to volunteer? I mean, I'm sure you're always looking for volunteering for all the programs and stuff. What would the
Absolutely.
number they would call?
So they could call the main COA office. We have a person who screens our volunteers. There's some paperwork that has to be filled out. But the main number is 508-291-3130. And if they express interest in becoming a volunteer, we have them fill out a quick form. They do have to be quarried and sorried. And then there's a checklist there that they can indicate, I'd like to help with Meals on Wheels, in which case we forward them in that direction. If they want to work in the COA, there's different, help with mailings, or we have bulk deliveries of our newsletters to Stop and Shop and Shaw's and some of the banks, so seniors can do some of that too. We have a bunch of ways to help if they want.
You have a lot going on.
We do.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to promote within the COA? Or?
Well, I would just like to give a little shout out to the advocates for Wareham seniors. They are not part of the COA. They are an independent 501c3 nonprofit, but they are dedicated to helping seniors within the Wareham community. And they often work through us because we have reach in ways that they don't. So they're doing a membership drive. I believe it's $10 a year to become a member. And they help seniors. They provide food cards, for example. They help advertise our programs. They're just a resource for seniors within the community. So they're a great organization to support. So if anyone is interested in joining them, they can call the COA office and we'll put them in touch with the people that are running that.
Very good. I just want to thank you for being here, and you're doing a great job. And, I hope people learned. I know I learned a bunch about the Council on Aging tonight, so thank you for being here, and enjoy your evening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Turn it over to Wes now, and he's going
Okay,
to do a
thank
little
you for
interview with you.
inviting me.
Good evening, Priscilla, and once again, thank you for coming tonight. First of all, how long have you been in the role of town assessor?
I would be running for my 4th term, so it'd be 9 years.
And what would you say is the role of the assessors committee in town?
Okay, well, the elected assessors, bear in mind, we have a professional staff who do the day-to-day work. They're the ones that value property. The elected assessors by state need to do specific things when exemptions are granted and for, say, a veteran. If you're a veteran disabled between 10 and 99%, you get a set amount off your taxes, your real estate taxes. We have to sign off on those forms, but the staff do the verification of things like that.
Are you involved in any other committees or boards in town?
Oh, okay. Well, primarily the library. I have been a member of the Friends, since about 1990. I had served as a trustee on and off for a number of years, but I am part of the Friends organizations, and of course we run monthly book sales. Right now, the Friends have made a commitment. We will be contributing $15,000 towards the books and material budget for the library. We're paying for all the programming, all the museum passes, and almost anything within reason that the staff feels they need. We help it any way we can.
Does the assessor's office have the power to set the tax rate?
It's not just the assessors. They work with the town financial aspect. When I first became assessor, you are required to take certain courses. One of the courses I took actually was over 8 weeks. I traveled to the Hanover Senior Center for it once a week, and they teach you how to figure out the tax rate, bearing and whatever. It was the most convoluted thing I had ever seen, bearing in mind all of my adult working life, I've worked in accounting. So when I say this is convoluted, believe me, it's just unbelievable. But it's a whole process, and there are many, many components to it. And the elected officials do not participate in that.
A Proposition 2.5 override is a permanent increase in property taxes. What is the assessor's office's role in a Proposition 2.5 override?
Well, that's all part of the component with the town financial people. I mean, it's not just the assessors. I'll tell you, when it came up years ago, I voted for it. In hindsight, I think it was a mistake. Through the years, you've seen there isn't anything that just goes up 2.5% a year as far as expenses go. Health insurance, for example, I mean, you know, it kind of holds the line, and the town does do it, but it fluctuates because values of property change too. But there is a balance, and it takes the whole financial end of the town along with the assessors to get to those figures. I'm sorry, I can't give you an absolute.
People always ask how their real estate taxes can go up more than the 2.5% allowed under Proposition 2.5. If you could you please explain why that happens?
Well, you've got to take the 2.5% away from your tax, the value of your taxes. The value of your home is based on sales, and it's always a year behind. So the sales of homes similar to yours, if you have a ranch house, you look at the ranch houses within the whole community and see where their value is due to sales. But you also have to evaluate the neighborhoods that they're in. Do they have a water view? And there's a number of components, and everything is very strictly regulated by the state. There is not a lot of freedom within the assessing department of any community as to how things should do. The state regulates it. But the value goes up, and, you know, like I say, it's an equation that is worked out with the financial department and the assessors. Anybody that questions the value of their home, they can call the assessing office, and they'll be more than happy to go out and verify information to make sure what is on file is correct. If it needs a correction, they would certainly do that.
How often does the town do a reevaluation?
Every year. It's done every year. You look at the sales every single year. And then there is the evaluation where they go and they physically look at every piece of property in town. That's done, if I get it wrong, I believe it's done every 5 years. I know people have talked about 3 years. It used to be 3 years, but it hasn't been 3 years for a very long time.
And who specifically does this reevaluation each year?
It is done within the assessing department, but as I said, it's based on sales. There is an equation, there is a computer program, and it's done with the state.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, actually, I honestly thought, I didn't realize you reevaluated the houses every single year
Well,
by sales and things like that.
yes,
Yeah,
and
I
it's always a
understand.
year behind.
Yeah.
It's always a year behind because you don't have 12-month figures come October when they work on setting the tax rate.
Yeah, interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or let the people in town know?
Well, I would just repeat, anyone that questions their valuation of their property, please call the assessor's office. The staff are very, very helpful. I mean, I volunteered there for a couple of years, and I got an education, and I couldn't get over how helpful the staff were with people coming with questions and whatnot. And the number is 291-3160.
Very good. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on is going to be the people running for Sewer Commission. We have Bernie Pigeon and Bob Scanlon. And we're going to change the format a little bit. This goes for the selectmen too. We're going to do a 3-minute intro, 2 minutes to answer a question, and there can be a 30-second rebuttal after you both answer. No, it just, and we'll do a 2-minute closing argument. So at this point, Bob, they drew numbers before we started, so Bob, would you like to introduce yourself? And
Bob Scanlon. I'm a recent resident of Swifts Beach. Moved here in September. Before that, I lived on the Cape, and that was for 20 years, and before that, the Dorchester, Milton, Quincy area. As far as jobs, I've done a little bit of everything. I ran an auto repair shop for 15 years. I ran a couple of my father's companies for, I don't know, about 7 years, I guess. I've worked at an ice cream factory, gas station. I've done a little bit of everything. That's about it. I have a wife and 2 stepchildren and a daughter, and one and soon to be a second grandchild as of this weekend. So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Bernie?
Good evening. Bernie Pigeon. I was raised in the Berkshires here in Massachusetts. Started out, as far as my work history is concerned, as a farmhand, covering, we had 100 milking cows, and I was responsible for cleaning the barn. Went from there to the military for 4 years. Then went to college, Wentworth, graduated, finished my engineering degree at Northeastern, met my wife. Worked for 25 years for IBM as a retired as a systems engineer. Went to the Registry of Motor Vehicles as a Northeast Regional Director. Worked for them for 13 years, retired. And then I went for a career change, and I started designing kitchens for Lowe's. And I did that for 9 years. And in the interim, my wife and I, we raised 3 wonderful, astounding daughters who are excelling in everything they do, thanks to their mother's nurturing. And as far as the towns are concerned, when I raised our family in Stoughton, I got involved in the local politics there, a representative on the town meeting, became a member of the finance committee, and for 9 years, I chaired it for 8 years. Retired from there, we moved to Bridgewater. I joined the finance committee there also, worked for 2 years, and then came here to Wareham. And I saw one of the selectmen. I said, how do I get involved? And he guided me, allegedly, to the finance committee. And I'm now finishing my 9 years with the finance committee here locally. And I just want to tell you, the people that I worked with on the finance committee were absolutely astounding, and they were representative of everyone else in our community. And I hope to go beyond that now to the sewer commission, and hopefully to help them out with the problems they apparently have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The first question, I will go to Bernie. Wes?
Why did you decide to run for sewer commission?
I think my forte is management, and I got involved as the articles that were on the town meeting warrant, especially with the Swift Speech issue, and I attended a couple of meetings that they had down at Swift Speech, and very disappointed as to the way they were handled. I was in marketing most of my life, and I realized that the product that they were selling to the Swift Speech people just was not one that would appeal to anyone. The layout was very incomplete. The information was lacking, and so I felt my skills I could bring to the committee and perhaps do a better job.
Bob, would you care to answer that same question?
Yes, when I have friends that live in Swift Speech, and last summer I became aware of the problem with the grinder pumps, the issue, and it became apparent that primarily the first problem was that people just did not have any information to make an informed decision about the grinder pump issue. So when I moved down here in January, after attending a few meetings, I decided that I would compile a mailing list derived from the assessor's database of all the homeowners in Swift Speech. And I brought it to the group that had already started organizing, and suggested that we do a mailing, and in addition to that, probably set up a website so that people would have a place to go to get the information that they needed. And that night I realized it probably wasn't going to happen unless I did it, so I designed the website as well, and brought people up to speed.
Thank you. Bob, we're going to start with you with the
Sure.
first question. What qualifications and experiences do you bring to the commission?
Life experiences, I guess, and troubleshooting. I've worked at a couple of places where we had to come from behind and get things squared away, and I quickly learned that information is key, and if you have all the information, you can pretty much do anything. Without it, you're lost. And that's what I hope to bring to the Sewer Commission. It seems like there's a lack of information, and honestly, being present at a few meetings and watching the rest on Zoom, it just raises more questions as to how it all works, basically. So I look forward to learning about that.
It's a big learning experience.
Yes.
Thank you. Bernie, same questions. What qualifications and experiences do you bring to the commission?
My working life has been primarily connected directly with some type of marketing. And you know that you can't sell something if it isn't the complete package, and present it to the customer in such a way as they understand it and it appeals to them and satisfies their needs. Also, I've done 20 years collectively with the finance committees. And in doing that, in researching for the information on the various articles and the like, I became very familiar with, one, with government, and two, finding information that is needed and making sure that there's all there, that it's complete when it hits the floor of town meeting. We have evaluated it completely in every aspect of it. And that's exactly what was lacking in the presentation to Swift Speech. And so I think I can bring those skills to the committee and be able to make sure that the product that they present to the users is complete.
Thank you. Yes. This will be you, Bernie.
What do you feel is the role of the Sewer Commission?
They provide a service that the community cannot survive without. The entire coastline of Wareham has been sewered, had absolute necessity. The federal government has regulations that we could not continue with the cesspools or septic systems. The growth in the community is dependent upon it also. You just can't construct anything that needs that kind of disposal network and have the community grow. So growth is an important aspect of that. An operational sewer system must operate so that the community can grow. And it's a stagnant community is just one that's pretty boring. But the service that is provided is an absolute necessity for everybody, even individuals, to exist in their own home.
And Bob, what would you say is the role of the Sewer Commission?
Well, like Bernie said, it's to provide a service and information to the community and to make the system work. I've had the opportunity to tour the WPCF, and we have a lot of challenges that lie ahead, and I think we're behind the 8 ball. So a lot of work really needs to be done to bring us up to speed.
Thank you. Bob, we're going to start with you. This past year, if you were already serving on the Sewer Commission, what would you have done differently?
Oh, well, I can only speak to the Swift Speech issue. But with that, I would have studied the situation. I would have done my homework as to what was involved and what was needed, what was not needed in Swift Speech. And I would have answered the calls of the residents to simply provide information, or at least be allowed to ask questions of the Sewer Commission. And I would have worked to provide the most well-informed answers to the community so they knew what lied ahead.
Bernie, same question. This past year, if you were already serving on the Sewer Commission, what would you have done differently?
I would have made sure that the information was well investigated. I should say information investigated, excuse me. The presentation totally lacked the basic information that the user needs to understand what they were presenting. In some cases, they couldn't even tell them whether or not they were going to have to upgrade their electrical system. That's a given, I would have expected. To understand the impact on each individual is a necessity. You can't go forward with that because you're imposing right on their own property for one, but their lives. I can't say, as Bob and I have been both trying to find information on certain things that have happened in the past so we can understand the process and certain things that are now waiting in the future. And we've had difficulties finding that information and getting it. And we don't even know if it exists. So we're not sure how the process was made or the decision was made in the system to go forward with the, in this case, the grinding pumps down around the Swift Beach area. There's a lot of questions and concerns throughout the system that have to be investigated thoroughly and to understand the impact of our decision. And I don't believe that was done thoroughly enough.
Thank you.
Starting with Bernie, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the town of Wareham? Could you list them, in your opinion, in order of importance?
Well, starting on the basis of our candidacy here is the absolute necessity of having an operational sewer system. It's it was built in 1970, so it's 50 years old. It's critical to the entire coastline. Concerned nitrogen is coming up. Unfortunately, our plant will remove probably 90% of the nitrogen that it processes. That's along the coastline. But now you go inland where we do not have a sewer system. We have to be concerned about those certain areas that may be of concern, and we have to expand into them or somehow provide services. But also that impacts our growth. We cannot grow unless we can provide those kinds of services to either residents or commercial expansion. And our neighboring communities are suffering the same impact, and it's possible that we could even partner with them to solve some of those long-term issues.
And Bob, same question. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the town's sewer system specifically?
The sewer system specifically, I mean, I agree with Bernie. It's a question of growth of the town, which I guess has been substantial. Taking into account the age of the system. Upgrades need to be made. I know we have a problem with capacity, and there's been a moratorium, so we couldn't add any more sewer users. I know that I&I inflow into the system, which ultimately has to be processed by the plant. It's an extra burden. That needs to be addressed, and I think that can be overcome. But all of those things need to be addressed going into the future. Like I said, I think we're a little bit behind the 8 ball here when it comes to infrastructure, and we're going to have to work hard to bring it up to speed.
Thank you. This will be a good question for you, starting with you, Bob. With these challenges, how do you see the town paying for these challenges in the future? Override user fees? I'm not really sure. There's a lot of money involved here. How do we pay for them?
That's a good question. I think as far as user fees, that's another issue where that I'd like to see addressed, because right now each home, regardless of whether it's seasonal or year-round, whether there's one person living in a house or 5 or 6, they all pay the same sewer rate. I'd like to see that change to a usage rate, be more equitable. Obviously, if you're a household that's using a lot of water, water comes in, water goes out. That has to be processed at the plant, and it should definitely be more equitable. And I would like to look at the commercial versus residential rates and see if that's equitable as well, and what changes need to be made there. And I don't know a lot about town's finances, but to the extent that we can get grants, we need to definitely delve into that and study it closely and see what is available.
Bernie, same question. How do you see the town meeting these challenges in paying for them?
Very difficult question. We are heavily dependent upon grants, and the cost of things, of course, are going up astronomically. We had a discussion in the Finance Committee in reviewing some of the articles as to should user fees be paying for any improvements, since they are the exclusive users of this service, or should the entire community pay because they obviously will benefit from having a viable sewer system, even though they may not be piped into it. The growth that it stimulates alone would support everyone. It's extraordinary to consider because we have projections of upwards of $180 million to do everything that plant needs. There's an infrastructure bill down in Washington now that we're applying for, and we hope to get substantial funds from that so to provide for the articles that are coming up, especially in the June special town meeting and beyond that. The plant itself, as I said earlier, is built in the late 1970s. The latest upgrade was in 2005. And when I say it's upgraded in 2005, the planning for that started in 1998, which means they were starting to develop the products for 1998 and they installed them in 2005. So everything is at least 20 years old. So we have to go out to say we can do it through user fees. That's the user paying for the expense of borrowing through user fees. But it's something the town is going to have to make a decision on. And it'll be the voter will have ultimate.
Thank you. Starting with you, Bernie. I think you're both going to appreciate this last question. On next.
Let's see this.
Going off of that topic, do you support a usage fee, or do you believe that the town should continue charging based on equivalent dwelling units?
No, it should be a user fee. It'd be fair. It's more equitable. If you have, as an example, you have a couple with a two-bedroom bungalow, one bath, and they're just living there all year, and that's their home. The one next door, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and every weekend through the summer there's 10 people or more. It's unfair to them. I think they can realize more revenues from more appropriate sources by going through a user fee versus an EDU.
And Bob, do you support a usage fee or continuing charging based on equivalent dwelling units?
No, I believe in a usage fee. I've heard that we're one of 4 or 5 communities in the state that still use the flat rate per house, and I don't know what the issue is. I mean, I know you have to work closely with the water department, but that's something that has to be done. It's only fair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody out in the crowd has any questions they'd like to ask. If not, we'll start with your 2-minute closing. Bob?
2-minute closing. Where do I start? I'm new to this game. There's a lot I don't know, but I look forward to learning, and that's what basically got me here, is digging for information and learning more and coming up with more questions. And I think I've helped a lot of people, especially in the Swifts Beach area. We never, as a group, expected that we'd ever learn so much about sewer systems. And it's been enlightening, and our neighborhood, I think, has become pretty expert on the topic. So as much as a neighborhood can be or should be, but I look forward to meeting the challenge of getting as much information out to the people as possible.
Just to add one thing to that, Bob is running as a write-in candidate,
Yes.
so please, everybody in town support him. It's important that, we get behind the candidates that are running. Sorry.
Thank you.
Bernie?
As I mentioned earlier, the sewer plant is a critical part of the infrastructure of our community. Approximately 60% of the area is sewered. It's difficult to consider that it may be expanding because we have Shangri-La is quite a ways up there, for one. We've been discussed in doing regionalization, which would be an asset for the town. But just in our own community, it's necessary to support the process and the system. As I said, it's critical. We cannot expand. We have a long list of people who want to connect as a result of the moratorium, and they're on the waiting list. Some people just want to put an extra bathroom in. There are businesses that want to expand, and it's critical to our tax base. It's expansion of things that you've seen homes that are currently under construction. Their permits were issued prior to the moratorium. When we might lift the moratorium is totally dependent on what we do with the sewer system. We're trying to improve it. We have a number of issues we have to resolve in the context of improvements to the process. The plant cannot be enlarged, but it can become more efficient, and that's what we all have to do to work together and accomplish that. My being on the sewer, as a sewer commissioner, I hope will, coupled with Bob, provide information to the user and to the voter if necessary. It's important. It's an important part of our infrastructure. I can't emphasize that enough. Even though we may or may not be connected to it, we need it.
Thank you. Before you run off, we did have a question sent in, and Christian's going to read the question.
Oh,
Whoa, Bob. We wanted to ask the candidates if they can explain the enterprise fund which governs the sewer department.
The enterprise fund is totally an accounting operation. It doesn't actually govern how the system operates. It's an accumulation of the user fees, and they're used to support the operation of the sewer system itself. It doesn't mean it goes into the general fund, nor that it requires certain equipment, et cetera, to be purchased. It allows the user to understand that their monies are being used to support that service that they receive.
To answer the question, probably have to give a non-answer. I'm not that familiar with the enterprise fund. I'm not familiar with the operations of the sewer commission. If I do get in, you can ask me this question next year, and I will have the answer. But I think Bernie has far more experience with the financial aspect of the town, and I'll go with his answer.
That's a very fair answer. I mean, I understood you might have a problem with that. I didn't know what the question was going to be.
I might interject, the sewer commissioner has control of those funds, of the user fees that are collected, and then through the enterprise fund accounts for them.
I'd like to thank both of you for being here. I'd like to wish you both good luck and enjoy the sewer commission.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you for being here tonight. We have three candidates running for select board. I'm just going to go left to right. This is the numbers, the way the questioning's going to go. We have Jim Eunice, to the far left, my far left, Trish Wirtz, and Judy Whiteside. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for running. It's important that, people get out. Again, I'm going to repeat, get out and vote. And having said that, Wes?
Our first question tonight, starting with Jim. Why are you running?
I'm sorry. Three-minute introduction. Would you like to give a little background on yourself and talk about yourself, all the things you've done?
Sure. A little background. My name is Jim Manise. I've lived in town over 40 years. I lived in town over 40 years. I grew up in Bridgewater, and I worked at Bridgewater State University for just about 40 years. 10 years on the grounds crew, 30 years in the academic environment, and also the head of the unions there, 3 unions for 20 years out of 40 years. Working at the institution, it gave me a good background in state and institutional government and processes. A town is very much like that. Thank you.
Trish?
I feel like I've done this before, considering we did a write-in vote. Yeah, we did a write-in vote 1 year, then we did the 1-year term, and lo and behold, here I am again. So when I start to think about talking about me, I basically am an adventure through life. That's how I look at it. And I think I started adventuring about 6 years old. And one of the things that allowed me to adventure is I happened to be of the age when the world in the United States started to say, you need to give women a chance. So with that, in my youth, I won art awards and dancing awards nationally. In my early work years, I was the first woman manager in 3 companies and the first woman executive in 2. My background, it seems common to a lot of the people here tonight, is marketing. And my expertise is in the technology world, and I entered it at a time when there was an demand for technology and an over need. When networking started happening, when PCs started happening, and the last company I worked for before I started my own, we grew it as, in my position as VP of Marketing, from a $33 million company to a $1 billion sales run rate in 4 years. We went from being a company in a state to a company being international. That was a platform for me to jump off and start a consulting business. And the motivation was I had a husband who didn't want to leave Florida. So I had a number of companies asking if I would come to work for them in an executive position, and I started saying I could consult with you on that. And I ended up with an international consulting business, and my expertise was routes to market. How do you take new ideas and new technologies, and how do you sell them all through different parts of the world? Everything from pricing to sales structure to how you advertise the product. And my clients included everyone from IBM to HP to AT&T to Verizon, basically all communications and technology companies. Dell was my client from the time they were starting to build their second building all the way through till 2018 when I closed my business. Along with that adventuring, I also did some volunteer work, and one was for a not-for-profit organization. And through that organization, myself and 3 or 4 other people helped design how training happened to technology in the technology world. And today, that effort has trained and tested over 2 million people worldwide, and it funds a not-for-profit at over $600 million a year. And I still have 10 seconds left. So.
Very good, thank you.
Hi. I think the question is, or we're introducing ourselves. I've been a selectman in the town of Wareham several years. Prior to that, I served 9 years on the finance committee, and including being the chair. That was way back when. My professional career, I worked for 3 years in the city of Boston as a trust officer banker. Then I moved to the New Bedford market, where I became the first senior vice president female lender in the system outside of the city of Boston. So you talk about glass ceilings. When the bank became another bank, when banks joined themselves and bought themselves out, I was offered an opportunity to go back to school, and I became a school teacher here in the town of Wareham, where I served for 12 years, basically teaching mostly 10th graders. So I have financial background, certainly, and I have a deep-rooted knowledge of the people in this town. I've been a resident since 1974, I believe. My experience in the past couple of years has been really interesting, and the last 11 months has been even more interesting because there are 3 brand-new select people, help. And to be honest, that has been a real challenge for the board. The 2 older board members have mentored the younger people, the newer people, and it's been exacerbated by the fact that we have personnel turnover in our office. So I believe that my experience is valuable not just to the town, but also to the people who are sitting on the board, as well as providing a continuum of service to the town.
So the first question will go to candidate Wirtz.
All right,
Yeah, we start 1, 2, 3.
Okay?
so Trish, why are you running for select board this year?
God only knows. Seriously, I never expected to be in government, working in any government, small, middle, in between. When I got to Wareham full-time, I had a home here from 1998, but I moved here full-time in the end of 2017 and 2018. I had closed my business, and I really was looking for something to do. And I was introduced by a neighbor to town government, first by being involved with NODOS, and then being involved later with doing a project for the WRA on outreach to citizens to understand what they expected Wareham Village to look like, what they wanted, and simultaneously, how did they want to be communicated with. In the process of understanding NODOS and how the town worked and how people work together, and then working with the WRA and understanding a little bit more about how government worked, I actually was mesmerized. It was the same but so different from commercial business. In that process, I also ended up, during the NODOS vote, I ended up interviewing 40 people almost an hour at a time. In the WRA project, I ended up interviewing 60 citizens of every age, an average of 2 hours of time. And what that did for me is this is going to sound really weird, but I said it the other day and I feel it. It helped me fall in love with the town and its people. So here I am running for a 3-year term and praying to God that I will do well for the town.
And Judith, why are you running for select board this year?
I think I addressed that a little bit in my introduction, but I provide continuity and I also provide experience to the town. I've been through many, many town meetings, and I am familiar with how licenses are granted. I'm familiar with all of the procedures and policies that need to be managed through the select board office. There's sort of a misconception about what select board members can do. They manage policies, they manage procedures, but they do not get involved in the day-to-day affairs of the town. So it's much more an oversight kind of job. And having the experience that I have, both financially and as a school teacher here in the town, I believe that I have served the town well and will continue to serve the town well.
And Jim, why are you running for Select Board this year?
I'm running to hopefully continue on some of the things I was working on in my first term, and also because I like to see clear and transparent government, open government, and I don't think we have that in conversations with citizens during open forums. In addition, I believe that we can do better. The communication aspect in town, on the website, in town hall, we need to work on that. I know another candidate has tried, I believe, to have some inroads in that. It seems to be difficult. Our system of getting information out is a little slow. I didn't know about some of the things going on tonight. I found out through an email from Jody, Mr. Smith here, that there's also a vigil going on for the student that passed away. But getting back, there's some things I want to see. I'm a working class person, and I think I bring those views as a working class person, and I resonate those with a lot of people in town. And I also would like to have some say in government, and it seems to be very difficult to do so unless you put yourself in a position to be able to do so. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of questions here, so this next question I was supposed to ask, I'm going to skip it. You've kind of answered it, just so you don't think I'm jumping around here. So, starting with you, Jim, what have you accomplished as a select board member or a member of another board? What do you feel is your biggest accomplishment?
I have never been on another board. That's one of the issues. And as a select board member, I was on the Carver, Wareham, Marion Refuse District as a representative. So we worked our way through closing down the transfer stations because our contract had ended with Covanta. And at the same time, developed some new organizational oversights because of some of the poor oversight by the previous board and financial mismanagements, and that was good. We ended up in a couple of years being able to put going from like almost a negative balance to a couple of $1 million in the kitty. And so that was a big push, and also the curbside collection. I know it was controversial, but I think it provides a better service and a better cost for the users, which are the people in town. I did that. I've worked on the sand and gravel from the get-go, trying to get our quarter an hour, and not a ton, but a yard, and find out who is taking the stuff out of town. And you have to follow up on things. Also, the bridge, the dam there at Parker Mills. Worked on that and try to get some information, try to get it moving. I'm good. I'm done.
You guys are being very easy. Trish, same question. What do you feel your biggest accomplishment as a select board member or a member of another board?
So I have only been a member of the select board. However, I probably attend 1 to 3 board meetings a week and have since before the first time I ran. And the reason for that is I believe that you can't do good for the town unless you understand what the town is all about. And you can't understand that from looking at only one committee. So I have a background of having long conversations with citizens directly, but then understanding what the various committees are working on. That brings me to 2 key areas. So first of all, I want to mention Ms. Whiteside. I have been on a high ramp tutoring, wheel, and thank God for her, because I can make, I think, reasonable decisions about things that are brand new to me. And I think I can make good decisions about it. When I look at what have I accomplished, so I think I think Jim was probably referencing me when he was talking about another member who was trying to address communications, but really didn't get too far with it. When I did the study for the WRA on communications, I talked about communications in two ways. One, communicating internal to the town structure, the town government structure, which includes getting the different committees to talk with each other, work with each other, create subcommittees across the committees to get things done more quickly. I think we've seen the communication internally to the town governing structure really been increased. The second issue is a little bit more difficult because in order to communicate better, you need some money. Right now, we have debt every place else. While I would think that putting the people or the tools in place for better communication is number one on the list, I'm thinking it's not number 2 or 3 or 4, it might be number 10. So we have to look on further what we do with that going forward. You're welcome.
Judy Whiteside, you just may take a, what is your biggest accomplishment as a select board member or a member of another board?
Okay. I think looking back, the thing that will probably be written on my headstone is I was responsible for being able to put together a special town meeting and offer a purchase price and acquire Little Harbor Golf Course for the town of Wareham. That really meant that we were protecting 54 acres of land, and it is a community amenity, and I think that certainly is an accomplishment. The other things that I've accomplished in the past year is that I took there were 2 books of policies for the select board, and I went through every single one of them, and some of them are duplicative to the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Some of them were sort of silly, they were office procedures, they were not policies, and some of them belonged in the HR department, some of them belonged in the police department. So we basically sunsetted, since the beginning, all of the policies that the board had adopted over the years, and I think we now have 7 new policies that address certain issues. I've been working very diligently, urged on by Ms. Wirtz, to communicate with the other committees in town. I think that's one of the things that hasn't been done particularly well. And I've tried to mentor each chair and clerk of every committee that I'm a liaison to and make sure that their minutes are up to date, make sure that their website is up to date, that kind of thing. Communication is a big issue, and as both of the other candidates have spoken to, it will continue to be an issue because we rely on our press and we rely on our public television station. Facebook isn't really a great place to look for information.
Thank you. Wes?
Starting with Judith, what do you believe are the top 3 challenges facing Wareham and its government today?
I think there are 3 categories. One is fiscal. And we know that another town on the Cape just recently voted $208 million to rebuild or build a sewer plant. One of the previous speakers in another part of this forum spoke to the issues of the sewer needing to be upgraded and updated. I know that there's a $36 million question going to be placed on the special town meeting that addresses the clarifiers and headworks at the sewer plant, but I don't believe that that's the entire problem in a nutshell. We have failing infrastructure. We really desperately need a new police station for our police force. I toured a new station, I think it's 5 years old, in the town of Westport. It's absolutely gorgeous. We had a police study committee that did an enormous amount of work and came up with some recommendations. Unfortunately, over a period of 3 years, due to COVID and supply chain issues, that became something that was out of reach fiscally. Our biggest issues are keeping this community safe and affordable for our citizens, our residents, and being able to provide appropriate services. And it's just a really tough balancing act right now.
And Tricia, what do you believe, excuse me, Jim, what do you believe are the top 3 challenges that the town of Wareham and its government are facing right now?
Making decisions on what's most important to the town to move forward with the limited funds that we have available. Providing services for the people in town, and coming up with a means to do it, reutilizing structures and buildings that we already have for those purposes. Of course, trying to come up with a resolution for the cramped space for the police department. And we have quite a bit of land that we own, and I think we should try to utilize those properties for that, and not look to be purchasing other properties. That's my personal opinion on that. Just overall, how do we get what we want done with what we have for resources? Management, good management. I think we're lucky that we do have some good managers within the town. We manage the funds fairly well. And we're limited on, by growth in our budget and what we can do with it. So it's just tough decisions. What's the most important? And what are the citizens, what do they want? It's not always what we want as the leaders, but what do the citizens want? And so we need again to communicate and figure out that. Thank you.
And Tricia, what do you believe are the top 3 challenges for Wareham and its government right now?
I'm going to approach this a little bit differently. My first point, I agree with both of my peers. We have to financially prioritize the projects we absolutely need to get done and figure out how to get those done as quickly and as possibly as we can. Now, part of the challenge of that is, I think when I look at this town, I think we have a really good financial management. I look at what our finance department is doing, what our administrator is doing. What I see is top financial planning. Often financial planning determines how to create money by cutting costs. We do that well. What we don't have when you look in corporate world is we don't have a side of the town that looks at how do we develop for the future. In other words, what types of companies do we want in here? What do we want our population profile ultimately to look like? Do we want people in their 30s or 20s? How do we design a town that's going to attract those types of people? Therefore, how do we become proactive about going after the right types of businesses and people to be attracted to the town? Every time you put that 30 seconds up in front of me, I forget everything I'm saying. So that's number 2. Number 3 really is outreach education to our citizens in more detail. After the town meeting, I spent time with the COA and actually spent time teaching them how articles happen. How does town meeting on articles happen? And in this town, the more educated our citizens are about the various parts of how our town works, the more successful it can be. So that's... Is that, you're giving me extra, or I still have that left?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll remember that next time. I'm not sure how I can signal 30 seconds. Again, I'm skipping a couple of questions. Hopefully, we have time to go back to them, just so the folks at home know we trying to stay so people have enough time to get where they need to go. Who am I starting with? Jim? No.
I have no idea. You're the MC here.
Trish, yeah. Well, I was trying to, I'm skipping around here. You can see I'm circling things. Is the reuse of the Deacon's School property for rented space plus the Council on Aging a reasonable idea financially?
I don't have any idea. I don't have any idea because I haven't financially analyzed it. What I do know is, my feeling is that it should be reused and for the town. I personally like the idea of the COA going there because it not only gave the elderly people single-level entrance to a building, it was well-equipped with kitchen and other accessories, and it's close enough that GATRA or any type of service could get people then easily to doctor's appointments and shopping. Am I in a position in the town to know today if that should be done or what else should be done? Absolutely not.
Judy Whiteside, same question. Is the reuse of the Deacon's School property for rented space plus the Council on Aging a reasonable idea financially?
No. When we did the work through Tecton, who was the company hired by the Police Study Committee, there came to be a projection of $40 million to use this building here, the town hall, as a police station. The projected use of the Deacon's location for a public safety complex came in at well over $45 million. We just plain don't have that money. It would be wonderful to have the Council on Aging on one level, absolutely wonderful. That unfortunately is not fiscally available to us right now. The reuse of town properties is absolutely a necessity, but also we should do what we've already done in the past year, which is sell 3 buildings, 3 surplus school buildings, and we managed to gain over $1,500,000 from the sale of those 3 buildings. That funding can only be used on town buildings. It can't go into the general fund and be used for potholes or, street lights or something like that. So we really need to take what I would call a helicopter ride up, look at all of our assets, and see what best fits. But if something costs us $45 million, I cannot endorse it when I know that we have a $180 million sewer issue staring us in the face. And I know that in this spring special town meeting, we have $36 million as an ask to this community.
Jim, same question. Is the reuse of the Deacon's School property for rented space plus the Council on Aging a reasonable idea financially?
I believe yes, without a doubt. A few years ago, there was talk, and there was a study done, an economic study done by Serpide, and they didn't look at anything really beyond the economics and how it could benefit the town. It didn't look on how it could benefit the town as far as its social uses or improving the town. Now, there's been 2 studies done by engineering firms of the Deacon's School in the last year. They point out some concerns, but nothing you would not expect for a 50-year-old building. Part of the roof is brand new, the boilers are brand new. There's maintenance and upkeep with every building. And there was a plan put together and some seriously interested private individuals who were willing and interested in moving into parts of the building and help to offset the cost of operations. So property generally doesn't lose its value. And so say if that building has a 25-year reasonable lifespan in it without putting an inordinate amount of funds into it, it's just the value of the property is just going to gain. It's not going to go down. We might need it for something else. We might need that property for some other town uses in the future. And if we get rid of it now, it's gone. It's gone forever. And I don't want to see, and so yes, I believe it's possible, and it would be a good reuse for the Council on Aging, social groups within the town, youth basketball, seniors, could have a dinner and a theater in there and rent out parts of it. And they also took down the old, what do we call those? Portable classrooms in there. The town took that down this winter. So that's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judith, with all of the requests for better services in town, such as pothole repairs, town hall accessibility, and the need for a larger police station, would you support a Proposition 2.5 override to help pay for all of these needs?
I think I need to explain the difference between a Proposition 2.5 override and a debt exclusion. A Proposition 2.5 override, say you overrode for $5 million, and it was specifically for potholes. Next year, that specifically for potholes goes away, and the $5 million can be spent on anything. The difference is a debt exclusion, as we did for building the elementary school, is a way of providing a building or specifically capital expenditures, and that increases the tax rate, but it is not a Proposition 2.5 override. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the difference between a debt exclusion that pays off in X number of years.
Right.
A Proposition 2.5 compounds over forever.
Right, but the debt exclusion, the Proposition 2.5 override for year one might be for potholes, or it might be for street lamps, or it might be for, whatever. But when you go to the polls and vote for that, it does not make it always that same expenditure. So for the debt exclusion, it's much more specific and capital expenditures. We really do need additional funds to run this town. There's absolutely no question in my mind, and I don't think anybody sitting at this table would argue with that at all. So we need to continue to rely on our financial advisors. We have an extraordinarily good bond rating, AA, and the only reason it isn't higher is because the bond issuers know that our citizens cannot afford to repay additional debt.
And Jim, same question. With all the requests for better services, would you support a Proposition 2.5 override for operational purposes?
For strictly operational purposes, no. I believe that if there are things that we could fund in structural overrides or exclusions and not put as much tax or burden upon the general fund, and that's how I would approach it, so that, say if we wanted the new police station, we don't want to take that out of the general fund if we could help it, possibly, and possibly do an exclusion for that purpose, and that purpose only. And that way we wouldn't be taxing the general fund. And we could use what we do have in there to possibly increase some of the demands that the town people would like taken care of, being whether it's grading the roads, parks, better services, in whatever way. I don't know where the most complaints lie. I mean, it depends what it is, So no, I do not support it for just the principle of doing it. And the select board is a group who makes the determination after it's been submitted whether we would want to put it on a ballot. And the people who really make the decision are the voters. They make the determination. Thank you.
And Tricia, would you support a Proposition 2.5 override for operational purposes?
No. When I've talked with citizens, it's not that we don't need more money. It is to both what my peers said, it depends on how it's packaged. And more importantly, it depends on how much we educate our citizens about what the vehicle is, how it's structured, what guarantee there is that it will be spent only on the things that the citizen says they want it spent on versus being accrued and then spent on anything else. So for this to be successful in this town, we have to have our citizens believe that what we're going to do with the money is what they really want done. And right now, and I haven't been around for the history long enough, there seems to be some doubt that that would be the case. So whatever we structure, we have to guarantee and we have to educate pretty well long before it goes to town meeting for a vote.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. This is going to be the last question, then we're going to go to closing. And this should be an easy and quick one you can answer. It's kind of one I like. Do you see any areas where changes could happen to make residents feel value? Example, boards do more outreach meetings with local organizations. And I'm going to use the Onset Bay Association, maybe meet with those people, let them know what's going on in the town, or Swifts Beach people. You know, there's lots of organizations, Hamilton Beach, I mean, they're everywhere. Jim?
As a select board,
As a select board member.
well, as a member, you generally, if you're out and about, you talk with individuals. And as a select board member, the board acts as a unit, not as an individual. So I believe it's, as I stated earlier, it's good to have open discussion with various people and groups within the town. And probably a good way to do it is either during the meeting, allowing a certain portion of time, and to invite groups within the town to speak if they'd like to, and/or have a quarterly town hall. You know, and just open discussion. You know, bring your concerns. Let's have some discussion and see where we go. Thanks.
Thank you. Trish, same question. You see, your communications is your forte.
And so what's interesting is this particular subject came up in my conversations with citizens way back when I was having the no-dose conversations. So I would get one person on the phone, and the first thing I would say is, I'm not dial for dollars. I actually live in Wareham on Briarwood Beach, and I just want to know if you have any questions about no-dose. And I probably had four or five people who asked me afterwards, would you be willing to come out and talk to our neighborhood? The town really needs to have some focus on one-on-one relationships. Now, one-on-one, it could be, you know, two of us talking to 20 citizens. It could be one of us talking to 5 citizens. It could be one talking to one. But the citizens really need to start to feel that they have a relationship with the board and that the board is accessible to them and understands what their life is. So when I had my first surprise run at selectmen, one of the questions that was asked to me is, would you want to see neighborhood councils put back together? And certainly I think we can start to invite them unofficially, not to have them structured as part of the government. And there'll be some neighborhoods like Swifts Beach where they already exist, but there's a lot of neighborhoods that they used to exist in and don't anymore. And COVID actually helped kill the few that were pretty active. And that's a place we would have to really look at growing if we want to talk about communications.
I can give you the 30 seconds. Judy, same question. Would you like me to read it again? Or?
Please.
You see areas where changes could happen to make residents feel value. Boards do more outreach meetings with local organizations or individuals. Just get out and about.
Yep, excellent question. Previously, the select board actually tried to have meetings in other locations. We went to a building in the village of Onset, and we tried to have the select board meetings held in different neighborhoods, and it didn't work. That was prior to being able to Zoom and, that kind of communication. Communication with our citizens is absolutely necessary, but it's a two-way street. And I think one of the things that I've learned from Tricia is, and she's urged me to do it and helped me do it, is to communicate with all of our committees within the town. We regularly recognize good deeds. We recognized when Ms. Rice first came, I think we had her in 2 months ago, and asked her to please tell the town what you do. You're our new COA director. We'd love to hear from you. So there are ways to help the town become more cohesive, if you will. It's interesting because there are several villages in the town, and you can't, we tried it before. I would love to try it again, because I think with Zoom, with hybrid meetings, we might be able to get more involvement. There are several community groups that serve this town, and they do a great, great job. And before I stop, I just want to say I really appreciate that you have changed the format of this a little bit. It's extremely important that we are able to go to the vigil. The young man who lost his life a few days ago actually had an accident 2 weeks ago a week ago on Tuesday night. As an 8th grader, it's a terrible tragedy for the town, for their parents, but as the community of Wareham. And I think that we need to recognize that the town really does need to come together and help make sure that we can heal from that kind of a tragedy.
Just real quick, before we start the closing, my wife told me I wasn't allowed to talk tonight. I'd like to thank the Wareham Week for being here and helping out, and Wareham Cable TV. Kristen's sitting back there, and Bob White, who's always out of the picture, but they do a tremendous job, and thank you very much. And Trish, we'll start with you with your closing.
Let's all say a prayer for the young man's family. And I say thank you to all of you for listening tonight. Please feel free to reach out at any time. Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you as well for the opportunity to speak. We are actually available to the public either through telephone to Town Hall, through our email to Town Hall, for letters or personal visits into Town Hall. So while some people may be critical of how available we are to the public, we are in fact available to the public, and we regularly, actually on a daily basis, probably have between 10 and 50 communications from the public. So I just want to make that clear. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to everyone else who may be watching, and I appreciate the fact that the other 2 candidates were here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to address the public and the people who attended. And I hope you'll give me some consideration when you go to the polls. I really would like to be part of the community and have some input on where we're going and what we're doing. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you all very much for being here. Sorry, I told you I'd try to get done a little bit earlier, but thank you very much for being here. And everybody, please get out and vote. Support the candidate of your choice. Even if they're running unopposed, support them. Show them that you care. Thank you.
Thank you.